Welcome to Dare, the show for startup leaders, innovators, and entrepreneurs who dare to shape the future. Dare is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, OEN, and Darwaft, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. The Dare podcast is excited to welcome MD Patel to the show today. He's a biomedical engineer turned entrepreneur and the inventor of TrainSnap. TrainSnap provides real-time alerts for blocked railroad crossings. It helps to reduce delays and it improves safety for drivers and emergency responders. MD is based out of Happy Valley here in Oregon, and we're excited that he's part of the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network. So, welcome to the show, MD.
Thanks for having me.
So tell me more about your journey. How did you come to invent TrainSnap?
Yeah, it's an interesting story. Back in 2018, I had moved to downtown Portland, and one day on my way to work, while I was waiting for the bus, we hear the train sound in the background. Not knowing what the issue is all about, I did
Mm.
not register it at all, but the girl next to me had a full blown meltdown, and I was very amused by that.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
started looking into it, and one thing led to another. I realized that this issue has been going on for decades, and people really don't have a good way of getting notified, getting that piece of information. So you could say that was my introduction. And at that point, I decided I'm just going to pursue it, come up with an end to end solution, and get that piece of information in people's hands.
That's fantastic. So is this information generally available? Like, is there an API for this type of data?
That's the thing. No. So freight train schedules, when we talk about block crossing,
Oh,
it's
okay.
mainly the freight trains. Those schedules are not published. And all sorts of politicians, organizations, people all have requested these companies to share their information in any capacity possible, but it just has not worked in the past. So that was the gap that I was hoping to bridge. And TrainSnap is an app currently live on iOS that sends you notification, shows
Fantastic.
you the crossings that you may take. You can mark them as favorites, and you can select the time slots that align with your commute so you're not bombarded with constant open, close all day long.
Got it. Okay. So I'm curious, just backing up to the history of trains and train delivered goods and services. A century ago, the United States was crisscrossed with trains and there was a lot more complexity. How did they keep track of stuff back then? Did they send information via telegraph, or how did they know that a train would have to be on a track at this time? Sorry if you don't know. I'm just super curious. Maybe you've investigated it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can speak at length about the train and the history and what all goes on. Having spent, I don't know, 20 since 2018 to 2025, so close to 7, 8 years on this issue.
Hmm.
So the caveat here is that the train companies, they know exactly where their trains are, what's going on. They have the state of the art technology and the machinery and the status board, if you will. They can see that information. It's just that it's not available to public. And going back in history, let's just take Portland, for example. The location that's the most
Hmm.
problematic, which is Southeast Division and 11/12, those two one ways, those were not an issue, but the city expanded. So when the tracks were laid out, they were outside the city, way out, and now they're within the city. And in the past few years, a few decades, the city has expanded. The areas have gotten a lot more denser. So this issue started becoming more and more problematic.
Great. Okay. So it sounds like you're solving a real problem because now in cities, people are not used to train schedules. Trains come at intermittent times and they can be dangerous. They can cause traffic delays. As I know, every time I'm in one spot in Portland, I get trapped by a train. I'm like, ah, I did it again. Here I am. I may as well park my car. Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the response I get from pretty much everyone that I talk to. But that is the direct way of looking at this problem. So, like I said, when I first started looking into it, there was a direct issue to solve, getting that piece of information to people, let
Hmm.
them know that the crossing that I started off with four. If I'm planning on expanding to more location, but the idea is that you tell them the crossing is closed, hoping to add predictive analysis in the future. But that was the most direct way of conveying this information. But as I started doing more research, I realized that this is a mine. There's a lot more going on in this particular world that most of the people are not aware of.
Yeah. So tell me more about like the things you've discovered that most people wouldn't be aware of.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I would say is when you think of a blocked crossing, think of the issues that it can possibly create. First is the commuters getting stuck.
Mm.
So you might be on your way to pick up your kids, going to work. Then now you all of a sudden you have this detour or maybe a blockage or slash delay of 20, 30, sometimes
Mhm.
more. going into hours, maybe hour two delay that you did not plan for. So there's this direct
Right.
frustration. Then there's carbon emissions because all of those cars idling at the block crossing. You take it a step further, we can talk about safety. Even the first responders do not have a way of knowing when a crossing is going to be closed. So they have to take a major detour, and in some cases, it might be a case of life or death. It's not always that serious, but again, every minute wasted is a crucial time wasted.
Really? So an ambulance could get trapped there by a train.
Absolutely. Ambulance,
Wow.
those fire trucks, they have to go around. They have to go around. So going back to our example of Southeast Division 11, if they are heading down that road, they have to go around, make a big loop to dodge the train.
Wow, that sounds serious. I didn't realize that even those kinds of providers didn't have a way to protect themselves against getting stuck. So I guess I'm not
Yeah,
alone when I get stuck, basically.
you could say so. Yeah, you're not alone. There are many. When it comes to target audience for this particular problem
Hmm.
that I'm solving, there's a clear distinction. Either you have experienced the issue and you know what this is all about. In that case, I do not have to explain what I'm doing. Or if an
Yeah,
explanation is needed, you do not know. You have not suffered it.
got it. Okay. So, in terms of the app being out there, how long has the app been live and what's the reception been like? Are people using it?
I have about 2,000 live active customers on the iOS.
Fantastic.
I'm getting close to launching the Android version
Okay.
pretty soon. And I've had requests, people asking for Android version for quite some time. I launched TrainSnap on December 18, 2024. So we're in the 7, 8 month period right now. So that aside from having these active users, I'm also collecting the data at 4 locations just to see what sort of, once you have data, then you start to realize, oh, wait, and you apply science to it, then you start to come up with more information. And I can share a little bit about that as well. Once I started collecting data,
Yeah.
and the devices have been live for quite some time, but from March to July of this year, I looked at the data and analyzed it and found that again, going back to the most notorious location, the Southeast Division and 11th, that location is closed for about 140 hours per month on an average.
Mm.
And if you were to extrapolate,
Wow,
if you
that's a
were
lot of hours.
Absolutely. And so ours might, if that is not big enough of an impact for you, if you want to put a sticker price in terms of productivity loss at each location. Now that I have the closure data, I went out and got some information from the federal government where they provide you the average occupancy in a vehicle. And they also came up with this number that is
Yeah.
$21.10 in terms of productivity loss per hour per person,
Wow.
specific
So
to
there's real
crossing delays.
ROI. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then the city of Portland has this traffic counter, and I use their data. They have average daily volume of vehicles passing by at each location. So this one
Hmm.
particular location, the price tag in terms of productivity loss, Southeast Division and 11th, is a little over $1 million per month.
Hmm.
So by just getting this information now, you know how much of an impact you can create by just getting that information and allowing people to read out or not take that path. And eventually, once this is the most basic form of solution that we are providing now, but in the future, I am planning on applying predictive analysis, like I said, providing some alert prior to a gate closure so you know how much time you have to safely cross the crossing, how long can you expect that gate to be down, and the possibilities are endless. So this is ultimately my goal is to make this an intelligence a real sensor network, and not just in Portland,
Hmm.
across the nation, because this is a national issue. This is not a local issue. And once I have that, I'm collecting data, then we can start building APIs for, let's say, rideshare companies, the logistics companies, and we can share it with pretty much anybody. I'm also planning on working on the emergency dashboard that we can share with the
Oh,
dispatchers.
fantastic. Yeah,
So
that seems really useful.
yeah, there are too many offshoots, and they all seem to be very valid in my mind.
Oh, just sounds like there's a lot to do and no end of kind of use cases and possibilities to make your system useful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll ask you the terrible question to ask entrepreneurs, but how do you monetize? How are you making money off of this?
So initially, I was planning on launching the app with a subscription model, which I also tried
Hmm.
for a month or two, but that was proving to be a barrier to entry. So I changed
Hmm.
it. And my goal is to work with the cities. So to provide you more context on this issue, like I said, the issue is not local, it's a national issue. And it's such a pain. that the Federal Railroad Association and the federal government came up with a grant called Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant to the tune of $600 million
Mm,
a year.
wow.
Yep. Now, the caveat here is that individuals like me, private companies like TrainSnap, we cannot directly apply for it. We have to work with the
Hmm.
city, be an official tech partner, and then they can apply for the grant. So that is the path I'm hoping to take with the city of Portland. That will be the primary revenue generator. And once we scale enough, then I'm hoping to generate more revenues with the APIs and licensing data, and it could be shared with anybody. So, for example, these car manufacturing companies, right? Like, for example, Tesla is getting very granular with the information they provide in the navigation system. So, like I said, the possibilities are endless. And just imagine it gets to a point where Google or Apple or Waze, they just say, okay, we either want to
Hmm.
license the data from you or we'll just acquire you. So, I do have a clear roadmap of where to take this. And it's in infancy, it's a seed, but it can be a very big tree the way I'm seeing it.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. Sounds like you have a great runway. You have a great product that's used by thousands of people today. You're building out a product roadmap that would lead to a true kind of public private partnership, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you didn't come out of trained data. Like that's not what you trained in. So what led you to transition into this path?
You're right. Actually, my background is in healthcare. I am an engineer by profession, but I'm a
Yeah.
biomedical engineer. So, healthcare, hospital, medical devices, that is all I do every day. So,
Yeah.
this pivot was a kind of a big one, but this
Hmm.
has to do with personal aspiration. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, but have a technical or technology based company that solves problem for the people. And I did not
Mm,
know what that meant. I just knew that this is the guideline that I would want to follow, but I did not know how to connect those dots. And until I ran
yeah.
into this issue and I started pursuing it, it started becoming clear that this is something I can do for a foreseeable future, and there is a real impact to this. But like you said,
Yeah.
yeah, this is not my background, so the learning curve was steep in the beginning.
Well, tell me about some of your learning.
Oh, absolutely. I have spent quite a bit of money on this. And initially, so my goal was that I'll formulate ideas, I'll think of something big and see what the
Yeah.
possibilities, the idea of failing fast and coming up with a piece of technology. As long as you're not hurting people, just try something fast. So
Hmm.
the original idea that I came up with was using a linear accelerometer in a little device that mounts on the gate itself. So it kind of is measuring the angle of the gate. And once it starts going down, you can call it, when it's open, it's at 0 degree. When it starts going down, it's 90 degrees. So I was very happy with it. But then I totally forgot about the safety aspect of it. The railroad companies will never go for it. What if I were to, as I'm mounting the device, what if I were to break their crossing? And I just did not think of those things. But I was convinced that this issue needs to be solved. So that's basically the path I took. Then I had to understand how to build sensor. So TrainSnap app is the consumer facing feature. That's something we
Hmm.
share with the customers. But where does that information come from? It comes from the proprietary sensor that we build. And the technology is patented, it's FCC certified, and
Mm.
it does not require any cooperation from the railroad companies. We just need to be in the vicinity. And we are also not using
Wow,
cameras for
that's
privacy
fantastic.
concerns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, that took some work to build a moat where you have a proprietary sensor, you have a patent around it. Yeah, this definitely took some work to build. It's not like you just like put your iPhone up there and said, take a picture when a train comes by, send me. Like you've actually built out a trusted back end to it, right?
Yep. And it did take quite a bit of work. But like I said, I was very familiar with the fundamentals. So when you start solving something, you also have to think big. You are not trying to address just one location. How would I go about scaling this? What if I were to run into a lot of money and support? Then how do I scale this nationally? So
Hmm.
this whole sensor setup, I had to really think it through. We got the FCC certification. Like I said, we had to get it patented before we go all out. And most importantly, it is power independent. Imagine having
Hmm.
10,000 of these, and if I had to go out and replace the batteries or figure out the
Yeah.
requirements, it's not feasible. So, coming up with the PCB that has this fine battery management features on it, and then just fusing all of that into one circuit board that not only does the core function, performs the core function, but then also has all these bells and whistles. And it does not use a lot of power. So, all of that was a big thing. And then on the backend side, we built this scalable model which can just go from city to city. We just need to copy paste, and metaphorically speaking, we can scale nationally overnight.
Wow, that's fantastic. So when does your kind of national scale roll out?
Currently, I am pursuing the city of Portland. I'm trying to make connections, get
Hmm.
something official, and try to be their official tech partner. If you know, they are planning a music venue and some housing expansion near the OMSI area. And they have also received $500,000 from the Railroad Crossing Elimination Grant to study the Southeast Division and 11th Crossing. So
Gosh, that sounds right up your alley.
right, exactly. So they're familiar with this, and all I'm trying to do is it's a win-win situation. So that's my offer to them. All they need to give me is
Yeah.
just a permission to mount my device. And like I said, it's
Yeah.
maintenance free, it's FCC certified, so I'm not going to interfere with anything. And it takes less than 30 minutes for me to get up there and install and be done with it.
Wow. And so once you lock down the Portland partnership, then you can expand to other areas with Portland as kind of a proof case.
Absolutely. The goal is to refine the playbook here, get something official, and just use that model to convince other partners outside of the state and maybe other cities within Oregon.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you seem to have a great roadmap in front of you, some real user base, some real great thinking about the moat around you. You're part of the entrepreneurial community here in town. You're part of the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network. You probably attend some of their events. I'm curious if you could speak at all to what you've seen the startup scene be like here in Portland and if that's been helpful to you or if you think things could still improve.
It has been helpful for me. I started getting involved with some high intensity earlier this year. Prior to that, I was just consumed with getting the product out the door. And then I started making those connections. But the OEN president, Kara, she's been wonderful. She has helped me make so many connections that I did not have before.
Yeah.
So I always have a person or an institute to pursue. I can go after them, talk to them, figure out what my next step is, and there's always something going on. And as far as the scene is concerned, the entrepreneur scene is concerned in Portland, I think it's very lively.
Yeah, it sure is. That's for sure. There's a lot of people doing cool stuff, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. I always run into people and I talk to them, and they're always up to something good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been a really interesting conversation. So you can get TrainSnap today on the Apple Store, I assume the Android store too, and thousands of users already there. And you can begin to use this in Portland and eventually nationally. That's the plan, right, MD?
Absolutely. That is the plan. That's the hope. That's the dream.
Okay. Well, speaking of which, what do you dare to dream?
So it's a two-part dream, I would say. The first part of the dream is something I'm living right now. I
Mhm.
dreamed of having my own company that solves a real problem, which is something I have now. I have thousands of users actively using my product. So that part of the dream
Mhm.
is, I would say, I'm already living. But the next one is a shared dream. I really want the people of Portland and the city of Portland to come together and build something that can be deployed nationally. And I really believe in its TrainSnap's true
Mhm.
potential. It is doable. So that I would say that is my next dream.
Great. Well, fantastic to have you on the show today, MD. Best of luck with TrainSnap, and we'll look forward to seeing your success over the coming year.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks to our guests today for their insights into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We wish you all the best in your startup journey. The Dare Show is brought to you by the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network and by Darwaf, the superpower tech team that can make your vision a reality. Visit us at oen.org or at darwaf.io. Thanks again for listening. Till next time.